everybody.
Hello.
All right.
I looked up at the mic instead of the camera.
All right. I'm Angela. This is John.
Yo.
And together we are the entity that is Blank Page.
Yep.
Fusion. Never mind.
Sorry, drink was more important.
Of course it was. Give me a second here. Let me see if I have this up.
Stream check.
No, I don't want to log out.
Stream check.
It's like the worst. Don't check your phone during streams, people. It's very, very unprofessional. But I'm trying to pull up us. So
The stream brought to you by IBC Cream Soda.
Trying to pull up the chat so everybody here. I can see all of our... There we go. Okay.
Awesome.
And now people can chat us questions. Alright, welcome back to CCRPG.
We were sick for a week, so we took a week off from most of our activities. I was still working on Descended a bit.
Yeah, but I mean, we weren't streaming.
We weren't doing any streaming.
Yeah, if you were with us the last time...
I did have a couple of breakthroughs, which is good.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if anybody's with us, we had... we started and finished our MMO Overkill...
Overkill.
Whatever.
That's your name.
I know.
We started and finished our Overkill segment for Elder Scrolls Online's Welcome Back Weekend. Because we were in the beta test, and then we... the game just wasn't finished enough...
Yeah.
At its release for us to feel that it was worth the money. Although
Well, we'll talk about that in footnotes.
Okay. Yeah, we've got footnotes for our upcoming...
The important thing is, we are back, CCRPG on Sundays, and this week we have something that I hinted at talking about the last time we did a podcast, and something I'm very excited to talk about.
Yes.
This week we're going to be talking about lore. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about lore. We're going to be talking about game worlds and campaign settings, the good and bad that we've seen, and our inspiration for Descended, our current project. And we're going to see what kind of conclusions we come to, but you go ahead and define everything so people know what we're talking about.
So what we're talking about when we talk about game worlds and campaign settings is we make a distinction between the two. Go ahead. For a game world, we consider a game world to be the entire package. It's everything from the history of your world to how physics might be a little different if they are, how magic works.
The governing laws of the universe.
Yes, the governing laws of the universe and the people that live within it. It's more of a broad picture. It's the kind of thing that you would develop adventures from. On the other hand, we have campaign settings, which we feel is... I mean, they share most of the same elements. I mean, you're going to have to know some history about a campaign. You're going to have to know how the mechanics of that world work. But it's got more detail to it. Like, one of the key differences is a game world would probably not have encounter tables, but you're going to need to know during a campaign... Excuse me. During a campaign, you're going to need to know what kind of random encounters you might have in different areas. Or any individuals that might exist. Whereas in the game world definition of a particular universe, you're probably going to leave those things a little more disambiguous.
Yeah,
ambiguous.
I'm going to give a good example. I'm going to do a quick chat check because my phone every time we stream.
Her phone's messed up.
It's not messed up.
Yeah, it's messed up.
Would not define it as messed up.
I would define it as not doing its job, which would be messed up. It's messed up, TM. Yeah, we totally didn't trademark the phrase messed up. That would be messed up.
There we go.
Okay.
Alright, so chat check's over. Hopefully we're good. I'll check chat at the end of the questions, so
excuse me.
Go ahead and sit there and talk. Yell at us. We'll read it.
Yeah.
We want feedback, positive and negative.
Well,
trolls.
Yes.
All right.
Trolls are less fun, but they happen.
I do have a good example of what we were talking about, though. You know immediately when you hear the difference between the DC universe and the Marvel universe,
yes,
you know immediately the difference in the superheroes, the difference in the way the world is defined, how people come together. That's what you're thinking about in a game world. You understand that this universe functions on its own, it has its own rules.
But then once you start thinking of the individual superheroes themselves and the exact powers they have,
yeah,
and how
those are their...
that's more of that's the campaign level.
Yeah, that's the path that this story is on and the encounters that you're presented with.
And we are working on both aspects, sort of concurrently for Descendants, since they share so many elements. You need to know so many of the same things.
Well,
I'm working more on the game world, the general history, how everything fits together, and then
I handle all the campaign building right now.
Yes, she's working on our test campaign, which I don't know if Descended is the raving success that we want it to be.
No, don't laugh at that, because I'm proud of this campaign. I want to share it with people.
If it's the raving success that we would like it to be, then I mean, you'll see a lot of her work probably get its own publications too.
And I want to talk about why it's so important and why we want to talk about all the individual things going into this.
We've had some experiences.
Yes. Well, the other thing is just the thing is we know that going into this, we are creating the governing laws of the universe. We're creating a rule book, and we're giving people the overarching lore of this world. And with a pen and paper game, that's your job. That's all you have. You don't have very many individual characters that you're working on. There's not a lot of...
Well, you do from time to time, but they don't get as fleshed out as the PCs.
No, it's not. When it comes to the actual story of the world, it's how a player character interacts with the environment that we've created. So we need to create a good environment that makes sense, doesn't leave you questioning, like, out far beyond what we've thought. And, it just has to be something that's a fun, interesting environment to experience. This goes with all kinds of games, too. Pretty much anything that just has a story or a setting that it takes place in. If you have those gaping plot holes... closing the window?
Yes.
If you have those gaping plot
holes... It's a truck
holes,
outside. It's kind of loud.
You know when they're... Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead and talk about some of the good
Some of the good examples?
Yes.
Alright, mentioning games by name?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
We're talking about games in general.
There has been... Actually, my first role-playing game experience was a littler game called Dragonstorm. And it had its flaws, like any game does, but the flaws were more like minor mechanical flaws. Like some stats were just strictly better than others, things like that. It didn't always flow perfectly, but the game world, and I should point out that what we're going for is a structured game world. The game world is a canonical setting, and it's intended that all campaigns that are run take place in this game world, but it's left fairly ambiguous so that you can set so that no two campaigns can really interfere with each other unless they're directly tied to each other.
Basically, if you create a custom campaign within the game world, you're free to do that. And if you want to go ahead and just blow it all up and do whatever you want, I mean, we've done that.
Yes.
We've done that with other games.
Yes. But what was great about it was there was a lot of extra material that kept the game worlds coherent. If it was true in one place, it was also true everywhere else in the universe as well. In this case, the source of power for the villains, which were the necromancers, they're death mages, they were bad guys. And if they're bad guys in this person's campaign, they're also bad guys in that person's, and that person's, and that person's, and that person's. So no matter what, if you took your character to any game table and sat down and played with any group of people, you could expect certain things to be the same. The only things that might be different is, how the player characters are viewed in that area, which would vary in any game, really. But there's a word for this. It's called verisimilitude. That's your vocabulary word for the night, folks.
Please don't give them homework.
But it's that word basically means if it's true once, it needs to be true always. Otherwise, you have inconsistencies in the game, And it's, I mean, those plot holes and mechanical fallacies can just
I'll point
really,
them out.
they can just really, they can really screw with your immersion into whatever it is you're playing. And immersion is kind of the whole point to role-playing games. So, so you've got some bad examples.
Wait, do you have any other good examples?
Because
my bad examples come a lot from video games, too.
I've got a really good example for video games. At least until the third installment.
Go.
Alright, Mass Effect.
What?
If you've ever played the Mass Effect series.
That's what you were going to say?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Dark Souls.
Dark Souls is a really good example, too.
Dark Souls 1 is a fantastic example.
Yes.
Of the creators thinking way beyond what the player has to think.
Yes. Yeah. In Mass Effect, there is so much extra content that the player doesn't have to know about, but they can. And if you go out of your way and you experience some of these extra things, it's great. And you could just play through the game as, a standard over-the-shoulder shooter or whatever, and it's still a good game. It's a great game, in fact. Being flagged.
Yeah, I know, but I can't. I'm not checking chat right now.
Okay.
Hold on. You know what? I'll go check chat.
Yes, because it could be things aren't working. I'm not sure what's going on over there. Anyway, back to what I was saying. In games like Mass Effect and Dark Souls, there's way more content than you need to experience for the game to do what it's intending to do. And all it's intending to do is give you a story. And it does it in a very, very skillful way without giving you too much, unless that too much is what you're asking for, which you can still go and get. So on to the bad examples. Mass Effect 3... Mass Effect 3 was still really fun, and it took place in a well-thought-out universe.
No, but you know what? Ending. Mass Effect 3 had the exact same problem, I think, as the game I'm going to talk about, because I'm about to give a bad example that I think is going to, explode my chat. You know what? No, I want to talk about a bad campaign setting first.
Okay.
All right.
Campaign settings are...
The bad campaign setting I want to talk about is, I discussed in the last podcast that I ran and played in a lot of sessions of World's Largest Dungeon. And I
still haven't left Section A.
We still have not left Section A, and I want to say as somebody who's...
I've tried more than she has.
I want to say as somebody who's tried to run the game and play the game, there's a big problem with it. And that is because it's the world's largest dungeon, and it does take place in D&D 3.5. There are standards to a campaign setting. There's stuff...
And it hits all the keynotes for campaign setting.
It does.
But it doesn't fit a world.
It doesn't.
It's not given a canonical world to exist in. And I think that was part of its problem.
Well, here, the problem is there are sections A through O. Those are individual sections that are part of the same facility.
They're enormous.
They're supposed to be part of, a prison facility, but there are certain sections that...
spoilers.
Do you find that out right in the beginning? Anybody's ever going to play World's Largest Dungeon. If you play World's Largest Dungeon, I just spoiled, you're not going to get past the first section.
She spoiled what could either be your first 5 minutes or your first 6 months of game time.
The whole rest of the... Good job there. The rest of the section, they feel very disjointed. And on top of that, the actual mechanics of the dungeon, because they call it World's Largest Dungeon, it's supposed to be a big challenge... It doesn't feel like a big challenge. There are actually traps and stuff like that can go off on a level 1 character. You're intended to enter into the dungeon at level 1 and be able to play your character and go through. It's such a guessing game. There are so many times where it doesn't feel tough but fair.
And there aren't many clues to a lot of these. I remember
guess and check.
I was playing the Trap Finder, and if you have any idea how the rules in Dungeons and Dragons work about searching squares for anything, just searching a square takes about 20 minutes for a 5-foot square section of hallway floor. And if you're in a 60-foot hallway,
and there's nothing but 60-foot hallways.
Yeah, there's nothing but long hallways in this game, and most of them are reasonably safe to walk down. You might have a random encounter. You might have to, there might be like a little tremor, and you have to, keep your footing, dodge the falling rocks, whatever.
No, you'll just talk about all the bad stuff.
Oh, I've experienced more of it than you have.
Yeah, but I've experienced the very important part.
Here was a really bad thing, though. I was the trap finder, so I was walking in front. We were heading to the next door that we were going to check for another trap, and I tripped over some razor wire and almost lost my foot.
Yeah, that's a good example.
No indication that this would ever be a thing again. It was literally the only trap we ever found that was in a hallway. And it was in a completely unoccupied part of the dungeon, as it turns out. So there were no creatures nesting within several rooms of this location. It was just, for no reason, there was a man-made trap in a celestial dungeon in an area that nobody was even in, or had been in for a very long time.
An even better example, and this can happen the second you walk into the dungeon. You are intended to build a character that you want to become involved in. That's actually the really big part here.
Yes, it's intended to be a meat grinder for characters.
Yes, you want
a lot of people.
You're done.
Well, a lot of people play this campaign so they can play a lot of different characters because they're expected to die.
Well, anyway,
that's what I was getting into.
Anyway,
continue.
If you're trying to get invested in your character or trying to find the lore of this place, you're not going to, because quite frankly, you enter into the dungeon, and the very first room, there's no way back out. Once you enter in, there's no way out.
Yes, you cannot leave the dungeon.
That is the very first thing that happens. So, it's hard to insert a new character into the party if you're interested in roleplay. If you're not interested in roleplay, go ahead and take the challenge. But honestly, the very first thing that can happen is there's a door, completely normal door. It's trapped with like some kind of crazy flamethrower trap of death. But
I think it was just like a low-level burning hand spell, but...
No, it's because it can deal up to 28 damage.
28?
Yes.
Ah.
It can kill...
More than I thought.
Yes, it can kill a level 1 character. It will go off on a large-size category creature or a small-size category creature if you try to open the door. But medium is totally fine.
Yes, which means the vast majority of creatures... Well, there is a lore reason why it's in there. I happen to know the reason why that specific trap's in there. But most of the characters that walk into this place are medium creatures, like humans, or dwarves, or elves. And they're walking, and they're just going to walk right through that doorway and never even know that it was trapped.
Unless you happen to have a gnome, or a halfling in the party. Or somebody takes an interesting race, or...
Like a Goliath, which is treated as large. Or something like that. But and it's kind of dumb that the reason this trap is in there. I think it's intended to just give you some free experience for bypassing it. But the reason it's in there is this part of the dungeon has a lot of kobolds, which are small. The little lizard people. And then, on the other hand, they've got a couple of ogres, which are large, giant-like people. Both of which would get messed up by opening this door.
Yay.
And then you've got all the troglodytes and orcs that make up the other 50% of the people in the area.
And they could go through just fine.
Yeah, oh, maybe they set the trap. Wait, no, they obviously didn't set the trap because they're all like level 1 warriors.
No, some of the troglodytes might have, but the only random encounter you get for troglodytes in that... Yeah, we're still sick. The only random encounter you get for troglodytes in that area, they're always playing cards and they always smell bad. Like, that is the specific thing for their random encounter on the encounter table.
Oh, speaking of the random encounters on that, though, that was the only way you could find the plot.
Yeah.
There were no cues anywhere for even where you were unless... you got on the random encounter table when you rested, which is literally the most dangerous thing to do down here. Because when you rest, there's, 8 to 12 chances of something?
Ridiculous.
It's every single hour there's a chance something will wander up to you and try to murder your face.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But, yeah, there's these lantern archons wandering around, and they contain the entire plot.
They know everything about their section.
They know everything about their section, and they're the only way you will find out anything about your section.
Unless you're playing with a DM who decides they don't want to tell you jack.
Dave!
My lantern archons were annoying, though.
Yeah, your lantern archons were annoying, but at least we got information out of them.
Well, I wanted you guys to understand the plot. Anyway, I talked about the bad, but let me talk about an example that probably makes a lot more sense without spoiling this, because I said Mass Effect. Alright, so here's the game that's going to blow up. Xenoblade Chronicles. I love that game, and I'm sure there's probably a couple people who heard that.
It is
I think Mike was in the chat. he'll attest to it. I am all about the shulk, Dunban, but
more of the Dunban actually.
Hush.
She was.
I really love this game. And I really love the characters in the game, I really love the storyline it's playing on, and I really love that it doesn't start off as like a campy RPG for too long. Like it gets past that campy beginning crap really fast.
Yeah, surprisingly fast.
Yeah.
For how long the game is.
And it does this big build up where there's a lot of side quests, there's a lot of character interaction where you're learning about this world. It keeps building up, the torch keeps getting passed between the characters that are explaining the absolute vastness of this completely unique world because it's
and they don't even do it in a campy way either.
No, they don't. It is perfect. You can learn everything that you could ever want to know from just the story, and if you want to know even more, you can go out of your way. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful world to explore. Everything that is living, everything that exists on the back of these two continent-sized beings that are...
The Titans.
The Titans.
The Mechonis and the Bionis.
And the Longsid's dead.
Yes,
and
they have killed each other.
Without spoiling the ending, I'm not going to spoil the ending, I will say this. It builds up at the end, and this is an example of great story, but the creators did not think...
They didn't seem to think.
They didn't seem to think beyond their story. So this is where the game world itself started to break down. This is where I've been having trouble. Maybe it's just a issue of there aren't a lot of fans yet. If you have the opportunity to go get the game, if you have the new 3DS, just download it. Don't even question it. That $30 means nothing to you. You want this game. Because I need more people to talk to about it. Well, like the entire fan base online, I'm sorry to say this, is just a bunch of people shipping characters. That's like, we need more people talking about this game. But the thing is they thought up this fantastic ending to this fantastic game, and it's totally worth playing. But as I sat down after it and I started thinking about the game world that the story took place in, there were parts of the actual story itself that had these plot holes that really stuck out to me. And this was...
I wouldn't call them plot holes, but they were just things that...
They couldn't be answered. I couldn't logically come to a conclusion.
They could not be answered by observing the rest of the game world itself.
Yes.
There were... it's kind of like watching Lost. There's just things that were left unanswered for no reason that we can think of. It's possible...
It just feels like it wasn't explained... Or maybe it wasn't explained the right way.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really important because you know that you've lost immersion in a game when somebody is asking, like, a better example is, like, people will play through a Pokemon game and love the shit out of Pokemon, and then they'll go back later and they'll be like, why are 10-year-olds carrying around monsters? You don't think about that in the moment because the game is so fun, the setting's so fun, the story's so fun, everything is so...
But then they went back and they
nitpicked.
Well, yeah, but a lot of that has also been explained in hindsight.
Yeah.
Which is something games like Xenoblade Chronicles haven't done, at least not yet.
Yes, at least haven't done yet. And of course, I'm picking on...
Maybe the next one.
Yeah, I am picking on this one knowing that Xenoblade Chronicles X is going to take place in the same universe and there's stuff coming out of that. I know that these questions could possibly be answered, but for something that was so expansive, to just have an end, like especially a big ending point where a lot of stuff was shown to me and explained, and for me to still have so many questions.
It's like they started explaining how their universe was intended to work and how it went from point A to point... It's like they went from point A to point C without fully explaining what B was and how it happened.
And you'll have to play the game to understand. If you play the game, you're going to love it, but just understand that when you get to the end, you might feel the same way. You might look at it and be like, I don't get how that works.
Honestly, though, I think we've been on this topic probably long enough. I think people might get our point.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
let's talk about our world.
Our world.
We're building it together, people. We are the deities of this world. Actually, we don't really have to find deities, do we?
There are
higher beings, but not like a deity.
Deity is a status in this in this universe. Her phone is feeling it.
So check your phone, everybody.
The way that cosmology works, there's just orders of strength between different types of creatures. There's the what would be like beasts or vermin, things that don't have what we define as intelligence or sapience. And then you've got mortals, humans. above humans, you have
Oh my goodness.
I don't remember what I called them. I had a name for them, and unfortunately it's not in my lore book because I didn't have it on me at the time when I thought of it. But there's a rank above humans that are...
Hold on, I'm being told to check chat really quick. Go ahead and continue.
They're beings that are, technically... Like, they have traits of both mortals and immortal beings. These would be creatures like, in our world, the Fae. They have a reason for their existence. There's a purpose for them existing, but they don't necessarily have to exist until that need arises.
Okay.
They could represent particular things about the universe or about their world, things like that. And then you've got immortals. Immortals are beings that, for whatever reason, never actually die. These would be a lot of the Infernals, a lot of the otherworldly invaders. You've got the Ascended, the race of Ascended that phase in and out of the world and fight on the side of mankind, but never actually intermingle. There's no Ascended blooded or Angel blooded would be probably what we'd call them if they existed. Possibly something for the future, but thus far it's not within the current
iteration of
the game rules. The third main kind of immortal creatures are the dragons, who are
good job again.
Who are they're not technically, like, they can be killed, but when they die, they revert back to their egg state at the point where they died, and because they represent raw elemental power, they can't actually be destroyed. So they die, and then depending on how much energy they had, how much of their personal life force they'd expended at the time, that determines roughly how long it takes them to hatch again. And basically, there's a finite number of dragons of each type in the world. Above them would be the gods. There are gods. There just aren't many defined yet.
Okay, I do remember that now.
And then even above the gods are entities that I have dubbed incarnations. They represent primal thoughts or urges that would be common among everything that exists below them. The two that I've thought up so far are, I think I went with the Eldrazi naming convention here. I have It That Hungers and It That Hates. So they're the incarnation. They're the incarnations of hatred and the desire to feed, for whatever reason. They kind of play the roles of big baddies. They have something that would be considered them intelligence, but it's something that mere mortals like us would be hard pressed to understand or follow. Kind of like actually the elders. The Ancient Ones.
Yes, that would be a good
beings
example.
like Cthulhu, Azathoth, the Cthulhu mythos. They're beings like those, except they might not have a defined form, or at least a defined form that is a single physical entity.
You know what's funny? Listening to you talk about this, I'm thinking back. We've been developing this for so long, and one of the very first things I said for you to do was sit down and think of the history and the creation of your universe.
And I did it.
Well, not only did you do it, but I'm realizing now, like, the things that you were into in the moment really played heavily into that. I remember that
was when we were thinking of trying out a game called Cthulhu Tech, which is another one that has great. They also did great Game World, but
fantastic job.
They did a fantastic job. Some of the mechanics don't quite hold up the way we'd like them to.
But, we haven't really played it either. So let's, we're leaving that.
We've heard both good and bad reviews.
World,
but their game world, the game takes place in 21 something, but they have a detailed history that starts, I believe, in World War I.
Yeah.
And their timeline hits most of the years between those two dates.
Yeah, and they talk about everything that could have possibly happened.
Everything from the discovery of the Necronomicon in the early 1900s to 21X, whatever it is, after the second war against the aliens when one of the alien races got tired of being a slave race and joined our side, and now we've got these living mechs. And
it's a good story.
It's a good story, but
good story.
It's a story.
But no, see, that's the thing. That is super important. One other thing I want you to go ahead and explain before I take away your cream soda. Damn.
I'm thirsty.
You have a problem.
I do.
I think you might be thirsty because you're drinking so much cream soda. I think it's
entirely possible.
Okay,
entirely
one
possible.
other thing I want you to mention is the kind of real world time frame that this takes place in, because it factors into good job. Because it factors into the campaign setting. Which
it does. It factors heavily into the setting. For the from the beginning, we've had this kind of whole angels versus demons theme, and that's been there since the beginning. But then I ended up taking it in a slightly different direction as far as time frame. We don't have exorcists and knights fighting these demons. We have legionnaires or gladiators, hoplites, trying to get something from all the different cultures we took from
Bronze Age.
Yes, Bronze Age.
I spoiled it.
Ancient Egypt, ancient. Actually, you take everything around the Mediterranean, backtracked about 2,500 years, maybe 3,000. I'm not the biggest history buff. I've done some of the research I needed, but
no, but I mean
exact time frame.
We have
whatever.
It's pretty well set in this one period of time, but we have the alternate backstory of that world.
Yes.
Thought out going back, because it's quite a bit different. Let's face it.
Yes.
I mean, there's magic.
Magic changes everything.
Okay, and magic is
got
power or math or something.
Math.
We'll explain that later. That's a fun mechanic too.
That's a fun mechanic. That might be for
That's a whole podcast talking about magic.
But it's late Bronze Age, dawn of the Iron Age. So most weapons are still made of bronze or equivalent materials.
And
travel.
Travel is big. Travel is not. We're not even talking like a Pathfinder campaign, high fantasy like caravan going through. Travel is something that is.
Travel's a big deal. Getting from point A to point B. If you aren't.
This is your life's journey.
If you aren't a seasoned adventurer, might be one of the final things you do in your life.
It's gonna.
You might not come home after that. You might stay where you went. It's a very big deal.
I mean, even trade. We've discussed that trade isn't a big deal. It's the adventurers who are the ones doing a lot of bartering.
The adventurers do a lot of bartering. There are, trade caravans, trade routes on the seas.
We have nomadic people in our. Yeah, we have like a nomadic kind of. Group.
There is a culture that's strictly nomadic now. Their main draw is Rome, ancient Rome. But they lost their country. Their country fell a few centuries prior to when the bulk of the stories that happen in this universe are meant to take place.
And these are the last of the people who believe to be descended from that.
Yes, and they have a, I guess it would be a gypsy-like tradition where they just travel from place to place. It's what they do, and they actually form a lot of the trade caravans. They're excellent merchants.
Yeah, they're what I'm factoring a lot of.
Excellent tradesmen.
What I'm thinking about when I run the campaign. I have a thing in my eyes.
Amusingly enough, they tend to use their wealth to fund their more advanced weapons that they have. Slightly more advanced. They have some of.
Weapons or power.
Yes, like they have they inherited the remnants of what was the most advanced culture at the time. So they had the edge in weaponsmithing and tactics and engineering. They just kind of got caught by surprise.
Yeah.
When their entire country fell. Right in the center of the map too. I have a map. This map in here. It's a little map. It's not a very big map.
See the map.
But it hits what it needs to hit.
Something I want to talk about. I do actually want to do more visuals in the future. So if you are watching week to week, we'll start throwing more concept art maps and stuff like that up. So there's a better idea of that. But we're going to frame it around other games and our inspirations before doing that. Speaking of inspirations, I want to talk about the campaign, but I don't know how much I want to talk about the campaign. I want to talk about it.
We've played once, twice.
Well, no, but I know how I want the story to follow. Like, what people can expect if they get to see the canon game world, what kind of stuff they're going to see firsthand.
Okay.
Alright, so, where we started, how do I want to describe this? We've played once, but I do have an idea of how I want people to go through the first opening adventure. It was going to be a long, adventure party where...
To find the waystones. To find some new waystones.
To find waystones.
Which we will touch on later.
Yes.
Those they're important. They're one of the big mysteries of the universe.
Yes, they're essentially monuments that are starting to be rediscovered.
They've been around for a long time. They've been known about for a long time, but people are starting to realize that there's a lot more of them that haven't been discovered yet.
And what the opening campaign that we're following through right now, which is intended to go across the entire developed game world, touch on like a lot of major portions of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're following a group of scholars. Your particular character is meant to be protection for them, and also go on their own personal quests.
Or assistance for them, depending on how your character has been.
Yeah, maybe you are just muscle. Maybe you are interested in.
My character is decidedly a bodyguard in this. I play a infernal that specializes in using shadow magic to protect himself and others. It seems a little weird, but it's what they do. There's a cat messing with our lamp.
Oh my gosh. Oh, some people talk about the other cat, so I'll go ahead and show her off later. But essentially, the point I'm going for this campaign, which I do hope everybody gets to see, is not only do I want to introduce a very big portion of the game world, flesh out the Silver Seas areas, the major cultures and cities and stuff like that, I also want to touch on the lore of it. So, like, half and half. Of course, you can deviate off into many different paths. There'll be smaller side things that we can do, but
cultists, lots of cultists.
Lots of cultists. Just stopping demons from being summoned.
Yes,
that's a good thing to do. Always,
yeah.
You're the hero.
Oh, we should probably talk about how astrological events happen as well at some point. Could be a thing for tonight.
Go ahead and talk about it now. Go ahead and talk about that. We'll end on that because that's a very interesting.
Since we brought up the cultists.
Well, it happens to be one of the most interesting and unique things that we're doing for Descended. That is canon. You pretty much can't function without it if you're trying to make your own.
It's one of the core mechanics of the universe, the Descended universe.
And
we still don't have an actual name for the world itself, at least not an official one. We've tossed around a couple. We've used a couple.
Yeah,
but none of them have stuck quite yet.
But go ahead and we will end our little preview of Descended on
demon summoning.
Yeah, we'll end our preview on demon summoning, and then we'll get to footnotes. So go ahead.
I guess.
And then footnotes.
Yes, I guess. Strictly speaking, they're not actually demons. They're just that's what us mere mortals call things from other worlds that are
big and not something that the humans of the world understand.
Yes, it's not something that the humans of the world inherently understand. It requires
or even developed.
Yeah, it requires a deeper understanding of reality than humans at this point in time in this universe are capable of understanding.
But we have the instructions to be able to use it to a point. That is how magic functions.
Yes. Magic in this world that humans use functions by using rune stones. And you got this little spell rune. It's a fire spell rune. You can cast a little bit of fire magic because the rune knows how to do it. You just need to tell it what to do. It's more just imposing your will on the world around you with a little bit of help. But the demons can just do this. They're that powerful. They're that intelligent. They've been around a lot longer. Most of them are immortal. They've been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Some of them even longer. Some of them are older than the entire history of humans on this game world.
Oh, most of them are. Oh no! Don't check your phone. Oh, thank you for the follow, Redfuts.
Awesome. We like those.
We do.
New friends.
New friends.
We like friends. So, because they are so unbelievably powerful, they can manipulate reality in a lot of really weird ways, and one of those ways is traveling from one reality to the next, which they can only do reliably under one of two circumstances. One of those circumstances is astrological events, like, oh, these couple of planets lined up in relation to this specific world. I can get to that world just by, opening a hole in space-time and stepping through it.
Mm-hmm.
But how many? We decided on a large number of moons.
2 moons. It was 2.
It was at least 2. At one point, we had as many as 13 moons.
No, but
we haven't decided exact.
No, because we settled on 2 because we had we have specific.
Oh right, she was working on a calendar.
I do. I have a calendar. I have constellations. Man, we thought a lot of this out.
Yes, but there's also other factors, like there's other planets in the solar system.
Comets is a big one.
Comets are a big one. There could be moons that still orbit this world but are further out, and we don't have telescopes. We can't see them. Things like that. Eclipses.
Eclipses are
any number of celestial events can create these gateways for creatures of varying power to travel between worlds. And it also depends on astrological events or astronomical, both, either or.
Yes.
It depends on these celestial events on the starting world, too. If they get a particularly powerful event, they could just force their way onto this world. The other way that they can get in is if they get help from the other side. And that's where we come in with the cultists. If you have a cult that has managed to contact these beings, which is much easier. If you manage to contact some other being and you're like, hey...
Cultist phone home?
Yes, cultist phone home. They're like, hey, we don't mind if you... They're like, hey, so you've promised that if we let you through onto this world, you won't kill us when you get here, and you'll reward us in some way.
That's a lie.
It's usually a lie.
They're obviously evil.
Not always. It's not always a lie. It depends on which faction, because there's more than one faction, because the game wasn't complicated enough.
You know what? That's an overwhelming amount of stuff. There is going to be a lot to read. There's going to be a lot of lore. We are very dedicated.
But learning the game itself shouldn't be that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I mean, the point I'm just making is, once again, we're making a pen and paper game. If you are making any kind of game, though, like I said to John in the very beginning when he first started thinking of this,
don't make Wakfu.
No, think of the history. Well, no, Wakfu is a wonderful universe too.
Yeah, but the game
is difficult.
The MMORPG, still have no idea what we're doing.
You know what? We should really check that out again. But what I was going to say is, if you're making any game, and it's the thing that we started thinking about very early, think beyond what the player needs to think about when they're playing, because when they have questions that they're asking, you want to be able to answer enough of them. It's sometimes good to leave things ambiguous. Leaving things ambiguous is fine, but the important thing is if you think out beyond what the player needs to know, they will always be able to come to a logical conclusion that makes sense for themselves. Because as in real life with us, there are questions that are bigger than humans can answer. There are questions of faith and reality and things like that, and we have to come to things on our own terms. Same is true for your character.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true for embodying a character in other games. Dark Souls and other RPGs that we played like that.
Oh, there's another setting that's really, really well done.
What? Dark Souls?
Eberron.
Oh, Eberron is good.
Eberron. The Eberron setting from D&D 3.5.
Very good.
3.5. Very, very
good. That is
good.
very well thought out. We've got how many books over there for it?
Not as many as I'd like. I really, really liked Eberron.
But yes, my point is because what we are offering for this particular game is core rules and a good setting, we're taking a lot of care. We're putting a lot of time into that. And we've just exploded it all over the internet now, yeah.
Yeah, I've even been doing research on the weapons and tactics of ancient cultures
to develop
the weapons that would exist in those areas, since they're so heavily based on it. Although I am going to take...
No. You're saying too much. Weapons will come another time.
Okay.
No, those are things that we're going to talk about in the future. Really quick, I'm going to go check and grab a couple of questions.
Okay.
We'll answer a few questions, and then we'll get into footnotes about the other stuff we're doing on stream, so I'll be right back. John, entertain the people.
I can't dance.
You can dance.
I'm white.
You can dance. Wish I could.
So.
Okay. Incoherent.
Yell a question when you find one.
The first question, I don't know if anybody can hear me. First question is, how good are we at C++?
The first question is, how good are we at C++?
To be fair, we are talking about game development.
We are indeed talking about game development.
We don't happen to be developing video game right now, but
yes.
we can talk about our
we aren't currently working on video games. We have a couple we want to make. We haven't decided on a language for them, as obviously they aren't in active development. But how good are we at C++, huh? I'm reasonably skilled at it. I am a programmer by profession, although my current job requires that I use VB.net and AngularJS are the two things I'm currently working in. I've got some experience with C++ based languages, but as far as core C++, I don't think I've ever actually used it by itself.
No. Actually, to be honest, just because what we work on is so specific, I don't even look at code very often myself. Every once in a while, like a JavaScript.
Web design.
Well,
and the way they do it, you've got frameworks that you just plug things into.
We can't plug things into. We have to hammer that stuff in there sometimes.
Apply to code.
ASP.NET. I see a lot of that.
It's all gone.
Visual Basic. I swear, it's just cream soda, but he can't stop drinking it.
I am sad. It is gone. It is delicious.
Okay.
Delicious.
Alright, wait, one other thing, because a lot of people are asking. Come here, Cupcake.
She's about to whine.
Yeah,
yep, she whined. This is Cupcake.
She sleeps a lot, and also she's a little bit tricked out on
catnip.
Because I put catnip on her blanket so she would stay calm. She does just sleep up there. That's her spot where she sleeps. So, in case you're wondering if this is live.
And this is Dart. He's kind of a meanie pants.
Yeah, he does not go by the Cupcake. So yeah, here's the kitties. I know, you don't even understand what's going on here. I'll put you back in your spot.
I'll put Dart down.
I know.
Dart was the one that was messing with our lamp. That is roughly that direction.
So there, you got a taste of our... Good job, girl. You got a taste of our cats.
Were there any other questions?
The other question was right at the end. I guess I kind of went through really fast, like spouting out pen and paper games. Was kind of just like definition question.
Oh.
So go ahead. You can explain pen and paper games better.
Oh, okay. Pen and paper games are games like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, any of the White Wolf published games.
Honestly, when you say D&D.
Yeah, you say Dungeons and Dragons, it usually gets the point across.
Yeah.
They're called pen and paper games because you have a character sheet, which there's one somewhere around here, but I don't know where it is.
You know what?
Ooh.
I have a Pathfinder character sheet right
here we go. Pathfinder character sheet. You got one side, you the other side. A lot of times they're done like this, but that's whatever. All of your characters, statistics, and abilities and attributes are on that sheet, and it's continually updated as you play. It's anytime a major different change in your character happens, you just change it on your character sheet. And
then somebody acts as the storyteller.
Yes, somebody acts as the storyteller.
Essentially.
Yes.
Rules judge.
Yes. In Dungeons and Dragons, they're called a Dungeon Master. They're called a Game Master in games like Pathfinder and Dragonstorm. Really. Storyteller is the one that White Wolf uses. Mm-hmm. But theirs are usually very story-driven systems. They tend to have less combat or clunky combat because you're not intended to use it a lot. Mm-hmm. But overall, they're very imaginative games.
Yes.
They require you to be able to adopt a persona of another individual. I've played a lot of characters that would act in ways that I, as myself, would not. Like Atan.
Yes, Atan.
Atan just likes messing things up. both objects and people.
Yeah. And I've done the same thing. I've played a lot of.
You've played a lot of male characters.
I do.
Specifically.
I specifically play a lot of male characters. To get just completely outside of my own personality. And
another big key point though, they're played with dice.
They're played with dice.
To get that random element across, your skill is represented not by when you hit the button or where you aimed. It's by
how well you roll.
That's the element of luck.
Yes.
The element of skill comes with what your chance or bonus to succeed is at what you're attempting to do. So compare a fighter to a wizard trying to hit somebody with a sword.
Wizard ain't gonna hit him very hard with the sword.
In the way this works in Pathfinder is you have what's called an attack roll. You have an attack modifier. It's you have to hit your target's armor class, which is a static number that's unique per character or creature, and that's how hard you are to hit. Like, combination of how good you are to dodge, how good your armor is, things like that. The fighter just gets a better base attack bonus by virtue of they are a fighter. This is what they do. Your wizard is sitting there with a spellbook going, oh, we're in combat. I'm going to draw my... How do I get this thing out of the sheath?
Okay, they're not that dumb.
They're not that dumb.
But they're not
They might be at level 1.
No, they're not as
proficient. They're not as proficient at it.
Where a fighter is, if you could imagine, where a fighter is going to hack and cleave their way through anything with proficiency. They know how to handle their sword. They know how to hit their target.
Comparatively, a wizard is probably going to flail around a little bit.
Yeah, that's a much better example. They
can't aim their strikes as precisely. They probably don't have the physical strength to back it up to deal more damage either. So that's where your element of skill comes in. It's represented numerically rather than how well you as the player is doing something.
Right, I'm going to do one more questions check and then we'll do footnotes.
One more question. Unless we didn't define that well enough, in which case I'm sure we'll find out and have to try again.
Somebody asked, why not be revolutionary make a video game based off the inputs determined by pen and paper elements? And they just said that they find pen and paper hard to because of lack of visualization. Actually...
You want to grab some of the figures?
Or
is that dumb? That might be dumb.
Well, okay, you know what? Both parts of that. Actually, I'm going to grab a figure, and then I'm going to grab another figure. Because I do want to explain something.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and explain this one. So to answer questions of why we aren't doing a video game with pen and paper elements in them, it's simply...
First of all, it's already been done. It's not actually revolutionary.
It really... I mean...
Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic is Dungeons & Dragons in a Star Wars setting.
A lot of MMOs. Mm-hmm.
Dungeons & Dragons Online, obviously.
They follow that
Neverwinter.
Yeah, when you're playing a game like that, they follow that same, you're getting into character, putting yourself in this universe kind of thing. I think 2 reasons why we're not doing it is, 1, video games take a long time
and there's only 2 of us.
And yeah,
there's only 2 of us, and we are doing this in our spare time.
Yeah.
If we did that, it would probably take us probably a couple of years.
Yeah.
By the time we did it, it would already be obsolete. There's only 2 of us.
For that style of game. Now, we're not saying we're
not saying it's not planned. Because it is. It kind of is.
Alright, here, I'll say it like this. We do want to make actual app games, video games. We talked about it on our last podcast, our plans for doing that. Right now, we understand our limitations, and we want to develop something that's going to be fun with the technology and the abilities that just the 2 of us together have. That is... if we put our best foot forward on this, and then maybe you aren't into role-playing games. Maybe that's not your thing, and that's totally cool. I'm not judging you because I, honestly, as somebody who loves these kind of games, I hate playing most of the time.
She does like running the games.
I do. I like running.
She likes making the adventures, defining all the villains. That's her thing.
But when I sit down to actually play a character, even though I've played so many characters, I've gotten into so many different stories and stuff like that. I'm not that interested when I sit down at the table. I'm usually sitting there, like, cross-stitching. But for...
She's working on a cross-stitch of our Wi-Fi password, so
I
people
am.
stop asking when they come visit.
Yeah, but I can't hang it up there if we're gonna... Okay, so...
What are people gonna do? Sit in the driveway of the apartment complex and steal our
I
Wi-Fi?
can't hang it up there because I'll be on camera. All right.
Well, yeah, what are they gonna do about it?
For an example, though, let me see how close I can get you.
Yeah, that is a character that I play in one of our games.
Okay, so that's not going well. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah.
When it comes to tabletop games, this is about all you have. Yes.
You have that, and you have some kind of
imagination.
grid.
You do. We actually have a grid for our tablecloth. But yeah, it's true. This is the limit of what you have. You have your character. You have.
You can have more.
Of course, you have your figures. You have your grid, and you have, however eloquently your DM wants to draw the stuff on the grid, the map.
Well, you can get props. People do get props for this, and
People do get dressed up for this. Let's face it.
They do get dressed up. That's not what I'm referring to. They do make anything from like any of the tabletop strategy games like Warhammer or War Machine.
Yeah, those
or War anything really.
Yeah,
those can just be brought in and used on the grid as well, and you can get really good visualizations. It's just not cheap. And the main reason people play these games is because all you need is the book and your character sheet and some dice. And I mean, that's assuming everyone at the table buys their own rule book. That's like a $50 investment. Sometimes more. It depends on which game you're playing. Could be more, could be less. Anywhere from like 30 is probably all you're gonna have to pay. And that's all you pay. You've got that for your entire career while playing that game.
All right, now I want to show something else. See this guy right here?
That's a Marth.
That's a Marth.
It's my Marth.
If Nintendo doesn't get on it, we vow to. I'm just saying that there's some untapped potential as far as like our role-playing ideas and technology. It's there. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, we applied for Nintendo's developer's license, so we're on the same page. All right, so I did my list questions check. If there's any other questions, or if people have questions,
we've got Unity running, up and running.
If they don't follow through, we're on it.
We're gonna be on that anyway.
Yeah. Okay, but for everybody who is interested in checking out any of the other stuff we have to do, again, we apologize for being absent this week.
Yeah, we were out for a week. There was something going around at my work. I caught it. I brought it home. She got it. Our daughter got it.
Justin didn't get it.
Justin didn't get it. Justin was lucky. He also just got home.
Yeah, Justin just got home in case you were to come in.
I was probably the one who brought it home.
Were you? Everyone at my work had something.
Get the hell out of here. Bye. Justin, everybody. If you've seen my streams before, his chin is popular.
Yeah, his chin is trending.
No, get your hand out of here.
His hand is not trending. It just showed up.
Let's see. Unguided Gaming is coming back. We are going to try to keep to our schedule for CCRPG every Sunday. Mm-hmm. If you don't catch it here, this goes onto our YouTube page.
Yes.
And you can ask more questions there. You can bug the hell out of me. I love being bugged the hell out of on our YouTube. Our YouTube is... I forgot to put it in there. It's for these
guys. It's for this, not this.
Oh, yes.
It's for this.
Quick explanation. Sapphire Shaddix and all that. That's me. Yes. And then we've got the blank page stuff. I put the YouTube in the description, but I didn't put it down here. This is all the stuff that you can follow to know what's going on, though.
So check the description if you want our YouTube. We've also got our previous episodes of Unguided Gaming. I don't think we did MM Overkill to our YouTube. Is it? Going on. Okay, so MM Overkill is our newest segment, but it'll be a while before we get another one going on. We need to actually acquire full copies of the game. Mm-hmm.
Well,
we only had access during
Welcome
Back Weekend. We need to acquire full copies of ESO.
Yeah, and we also decided that even though we kind of like the game, we decided that just watching people like fumble through the opening parts of the game is super boring. So if you want to
watch our most recent episode if you want to watch us each die because the guards decided we looked at them.
No, that wasn't it. I tried to hit you with my staff and I hit the guard. I just wanted to see if I could hit you. You can't hit another player.
remember what I did. I think I hit you with a thing or something.
Well, you tried. Anyway, the
And
point is we decided that until we get onto like bigger raids or bigger adventures, we're not going to actually showcase that. That'll be coming back in the future.
It'll be an if we find something that's particularly interesting. We'll probably be recording a fair amount of what we do just in case something funny does happen.
Mm-hmm. That's in the future.
But she's a sorcerer. I'm a... What am I? Nightblade? Is that what it's called? Yeah. Shadow magic. Ooh.
Well, we'll get to see more of that later. But
neat.
the other thing coming back this week is I've got a ton of customizations I have to do for Amiibo.
Custom Amiibo nights. We've got a couple of those coming up.
Yeah.
And I'll be working on some more of these guys. I've got...
No, put it down. Because the exciting thing is I went out of my way to buy a Robin from Belgium, so I'll be doing that.
Once that arrives, it will look like her. Look at who? Mithri?
Yeah, my female character.
Her female tactician
I'll
from
finish
Fire
Shadow
Emblem
too,
Awakening.
because I love you.
Thank you.
Justin hates me right now. I'm gonna finish Shadow. I'm gonna go do that right now. But that's
you
it.
have a lot that you haven't finished.
I know. That's it for tonight, though, everybody. So thanks for joining us again. We love you. That had kind of a tracer on it because the camera's not picking it up.
Dart loves you too.
Dart's back. He's actually purring.
Yeah.
All right, go away, Dart. Go away.
Weird.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Such a weird cat.
Say good night.
Good night, everybody.